다음번에는 패널 디스커션을 진행해 보려고 합니다. 업계에 계신 모든 분들이 이제 커뮤니티의 중요성에 대해서 잘 알고 계실 건데요. 이번 패널은 Meet the Community Builders of Asia라는 주제로 커뮤니티 빌딩의 운영과 노하우 그리고 다양한 사례들을 만나볼 수 있는 패널을 초청해 보려고 합니다. 모두 네 분을 모시겠는데요. Head of Binance Developer Platform Teck Chia, 그리고 Co-founder of CoinGecko Songyi Lee, 그리고 Asia Blockchain Review Head of APAC Nicole Nguyen, 그리고 Founder of Node Tokyo의 Yusuke Obinata, 이렇게 네 분을 모시고 패널을 들어보도록 하겠습니다. 오늘의 모더레이터는 위브의 파운더이신 이송희 님께서 수고해 주시겠습니다. 그러면은 패널 분들을 여러분들 큰 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다. So please welcome our panel with a big round of applause.
Hi everyone. Hi. It's really bright here. Thank you for having us here. As Nguyen already introduced us, who we are, so I don't need to do any further introduction, I guess. But simply saying, these are all great friends from around the world. Teck from Binance X, TM from CoinGecko, Nicole from Asia Blockchain Review, and Obi from Node Tokyo. And this is Songyi from Weave Korea. Thank you for coming to our session. No further ado, we can just start from introduction of each panel. Okay, Teck, do you want to start?
Sure. I'm Teck. I'm from a new initiative at Binance called Binance X. It's an innovation initiative and developer-facing initiative, if you will. We help developers from all over the world develop on the Binance platform, which are basically all the developer-facing products we have. Binance Chain, Trust Wallet, Core SDK, and the .com APIs, which will extend to futures and margin as well very, very soon. We have different programs in Binance at large. So one of the programs is scholarship programs, where we give out open source grants to open source developers and researchers. We have the Launchpad product that you guys may be familiar with, listing, incubation, strategic investments. So we generally interact with the developer ecosystem across the world and help them with building a Binance Chain and an ecosystem at large, and then funnel them through different support programs we have within Binance. So that's what we do. Thank you.
I'm TM from CoinGecko. So we are basically a cryptocurrency data aggregator. So you can get like market data from price, volume, market capitalization, and also developer activity, community size across more than over 5,000 cryptocurrencies that we track. We also have a pretty nice developer API that app developers can pull all this data that we present on our site and put it into their applications or platform as well. We recently launched a Q2 2019 report that pretty much highlights everything that has happened in the last quarter. And if you guys want to get up to speed, you can check out that report. It's downloadable for free on CoinGecko. Yep. So.
Hi everyone, my name is Nicole and I represent Asia Blockchain Review. I'm from Vietnam, but now I live in Bangkok. So everyone is welcome to visit us in Bangkok. We had excess of sunlight, excitement, and lots of fun in there, not only with community building. So at Asia Blockchain Review, we support companies going for Asia in terms of PR, news, media, and community. We started from Vietnam 3 years ago as the largest blockchain R&D labs in there called Infinity Blockchain Labs. And for now, we have a sister company in Thailand called Infinity Blockchain Ventures, and this Asia Blockchain Review is our extended media arm. So we are going to publish 5 country landscape reports, blockchain landscape reports for 5 countries in Southeast Asia that we are focusing on right now, including Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines. So we would love to hear more of your opinions if you're interested in contributing. This is my second time to Korea. It used to be drier last year. But I always enjoy my time in here, and I would love to learn more from you on how we can build the ecosystem all together. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Yusuke Obinata. People call me Obi. And I'm the founder of Node Tokyo, which is the first tech-focused blockchain conference in Tokyo, kind of similar to BUIDL, but happening in Tokyo. And I've been doing like kind of like a community ecosystem building work in Japan since like about 2 years ago. And as you might have known, up until like 2 years ago, Japanese market is pretty much like speculative, investor-focused market. And then I wanted to change that. So I started doing developer meetups, bringing some of the leading players from all over the world to Japanese market. Started with like a QuantStam. I brought them for the first time to Japan. And then I kick off the Eastern Japan community. Started hosting like a bunch of international teams like CryptoKitties, Web3 Foundation, and stuff. And then eventually I organized the conference as well. And I've also just started a venture fund focusing on blockchain space, backed by some of the top enterprises in Japan. And I initially got to know about Bitcoin when I was working at the traditional VC fund called East Ventures, which was investing in startups in Japan and Southeast Asia. And then in 2014, I met the founder of Bitfire, which eventually became the biggest crypto exchange in Japan. And he told me about Bitcoin, and then I thought it's cool. And so started like studying about it, and that's how things started. Thank you.
Thank you. As a representative of Korea, I will do a short introduction of myself as well. My name is Songyi again. I founded a company called 37Coin, which is a Bitcoin SMS wallet. So people who doesn't have an internet can send and receive Bitcoin through text message in 2013. And some of the friends here and also Teck, I met them in Silicon Valley while I was doing that journey. Back then there were not many people, or there's a very small community in Korea, and now we have like probably one of the biggest community in East Asia at least, and I'm very glad that I see the community grow. And now I'm doing a Weave. It's a collective of purpose-driven professionals working towards to create a positive impact for social causes. And I'm also contributing some of the ecosystem building in Korea, advising a few teams and joining the teams as well. Yeah, speaking of community is a big word, isn't it? Yeah. So I would like to know, we talked about it yesterday, but we all have like different sort of communities. Some of our communities are based on the country, and some of our community based on people's skill set, like developers, marketer, or investors, or retail investors, and VC investors, and different type of community there. And could you introduce your own community, what type of community that you are belonging to and you're into? Let's start from Nicole.
So I would like to start first. So I think that basically because my background before, I was not involved with tech and startup. So I just entered the space, totally with a very open mind. And I thought that the technology is very exciting at that point. And at that, 3 years ago back in Vietnam, it was still like, blockchain was still very nascent. So pretty much we just have a small team of developers who are just kind of trying to stick together in a very small room and trying to do all these coding of Ethereum. At that point, I was the first like community person in the company. And my role at first is just to try to talk to people and get them to understand what we are doing and to prove that we are not doing a scam. We are not doing, we are not involved with all these scams around. That's a hard task at that point, because basically at that point you can only hear about Bitcoin scams and all these, negative news about blockchain. So my role at that point was just to talk to people and get them to understand blockchain at the fundamental level. And I think that from then on, I've been fortunate enough to talk with a lot of people in the industries and people who are genuinely interested in blockchain in terms of applications. So they always come to us and asking what blockchain can do for them. So of course, we also have traders, we also have all these people who are coming to crypto for speculation. But what we are trying to do is that we are trying to talk more about the applications of the industry so that we can get more people who are genuinely interested to join us. I would say that I would call it's more like a general enthusiast community. But fortunately, recently we have a lot of interest coming from mainstream businesses. So not only banking, finance, but logistics, e-commerce, retail business, and in Southeast Asia. And these people, when they come to us, they always have some problem to solve. And I cannot say that we have been able to address everything, but that's one of the reasons why we have been able to keep the community moving forward. And I think that it also resonates with our mandate of finding the right use case for blockchain. So yes, we've been working with a lot of general enthusiasts in Vietnam, also in Thailand, in some other countries as well in Southeast Asia. And I would love to hear more about other communities that everyone is also interested in.
Who want to share next?
I can jump in. So this is one thing that we never really foresee when we started CoinGecko 5 years ago. I think most likely when you launch your own product in this industry, you will probably have to engage with two sets of community. One is the local community where you are based in. So like for us, we are based in Malaysia. So we actually engage with some of the Malaysian crowd. And the other set of community, which is a global community, which consists of, based on what we do, basically traders, developers, and so on. So for the trader side, I think we always like to hear what people globally are looking for, like if exchanges issue that report inflated volume and stuff like that. So we are building tools, we are building measures to help traders find the best liquidity from exchanges, and the developers, they're looking for market data, price information to be integrated in their apps. So we're constantly engaging with them to find out what they really need. And on the local side of things, definitely we spend some time educating some of the local enthusiasts, some people who are in the regulatory space as well. So the way I see it is that blockchain itself is like a global thing, which is why you have to end up engaging global community and also the community that you are locally based in. Yeah.
So I'm gonna talk about Japan. So I think up until the beginning of 2018 and after that, it's kind of very different landscape. So before 2018, it's pretty much about small traders, a bunch of small traders, even housewives or students were talking about ICOs. Mainly because Japan was the first country which legalized cryptocurrency in the world. And then also because of that, a lot of exchange companies started putting TV commercial or advertising tracks on the major streets of Tokyo. But after that, let's say crypto prices went down. Also there was a big hack happened to one of the major exchanges in Japan. So those retail investors kind of their passion, enthusiasm, kind of little got calmed down, and instead of them, more and more developers started getting interested in blockchain technology, and then a lot of new startups focusing on this space have been popping up, and also there's been a lot of kind of surrounding ecosystem for those developers kind of build up, blockchain-specific co-working spaces, or blockchain-specific media, and also for enterprises, In the beginning, there was like a lot of tech company started to build up new exchanges. But right now, I see more and more, like let's say, like traditional companies trying to build some tangible projects using blockchain technology. Yeah, so I think those, yeah, developer and also enterprises, and still very active trader community are like I think the major stakeholders of the Japanese ecosystem. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll just start with the Binance community. So Binance started in 2017, late July, almost exactly 2 years ago. We started as a global company from day one. So it's the service, the exchange accessible to most people on Earth. So because of that, we developed communities across the world, mainly people who engage with the exchange for trading purposes. And we kind of built what you call an angel network, which are volunteers in each country to help us support the community in those countries or regions. And that actually grew to be almost like a cultish type community where people are very enthusiastic about Binance, I think mostly because of the mission we represent. As you all know, we are one of the largest exchanges out there in terms of volume, and we're a very mission-driven company. So a lot of people identify with Binance mission. So we have that community with the exchange, and it's a thriving community. Whenever we meet up, a lot of people show up. And now, now that we have evolved, where we have acquired Trust Wallet, which is started as an ERC20 only wallet, but now it supports multiple chains. And then we have launched our own public chain, which is Binance Chain, which has native DEX functionality about 2+ months ago. Now we have developer facing APIs or SDKs, or even a Binance chain where you can develop stuff on top of. Now that we want to build another set of community, which are developers, which are more technical, which are a community of people who build stuff on top of not only our stuff, our platform, but the ecosystem at large. Because as an exchange, we do support about 400 pairs on our exchange. So we want the ecosystem to thrive in general, and Binance Exchange would thrive as a company as well. So in short, there's like, the original Binance community, which is mainly people engaged with the exchange, and now we're trying to, now that we have developer-facing products, we want to build a community of developers and builders, that engages with us, with Binance, and will help support them with different programs. And one of the things we've been doing in the past few months is a fellowship Binance fellowship program. We've onboarded about 33 fellowship projects. The only requirement there is a grants program. The only requirement there is that the output of the project has to be open source or openly accessible if you're doing research or writing a paper. And that is to kind of foster a set of building blocks in the blockchain, in the ecosystem, so that other people could easily cobble together products and services with open source software, freely available open source software. And we have amazing people join our fellowship program, people that you may have known in the community who've been contributing, like Hashmap, who just gave a talk about Nguyen, is one of our first Binance fellows. In fact, like 3 out of the 8 or 9 core devs are part of the fellowship program. And people like Patrick McCrory, Jeremy Rubin is a Bitcoin core devs, Austin Griffith, who built the first burner wallet on Ethereum, is now going to build one for Binance Chain as well. So we have a growing community, if you will, and this new organization is very new. So we'd love to engage with developers around the world. And this is our first stop, actually, where we actually met a lot of developers already. So I'd love to meet more. Yeah, so that's our community.
Thank you. Yeah, it seems like Obi and Nicole, like based on the geographic populations, like Southeast Asia, and Obi in case like Japan, and TM's like also Malaysia, but also you have like a global services, so a community around the service like Binance. So this is like a locals and also global in a way, and because like community is such a big, diverse pillars here and there. So you guys, when you guys hear their comments and their response, like please remind that this has like a difference. So I divided to two group, and so there is so many factors I just mentioned. And what's the key ingredients or key value when you want to build a great community? And I hope that you guys are thinking you're doing amazing job on the community building. So please share us a little bit of know-how, and then to make the good community, and what's the key factor? Starting from TM maybe?
Yeah, so I think I'll address more on the global community side of things. So I think for us, the community typically hangs out in like certain platforms. So obviously when we started off, we never have like a Telegram channel, we never have like a Discord group and things like that. But this is where most of the people hang out. So I think the first step, at least for us, is to make sure that our presence are in these places so that we can have a proper channel with them. And then they start to give us feedback, suggestions, and they sometimes just wanna chat. So we're always there, just happy being there, listening to what they have to say, and just address them. And that kind of sparks things and slowly start to grow. So that's like community in general. And as far as the developer is concerned, we also never had a developer community to start off. We just launched an API, we put it out there, and then slowly, as more and more people start to use it, and then they have a lot of recommendations on, our API is not good enough to do certain things, and then they start throwing ideas, and we thought like, okay, this is a good idea, let's add it to our roadmap. And over time, we start to form like a newsletter group that we communicate with the developers, finding out what they want. So I think the key point here is constant communication, always be there for them, and there will be new ideas getting thrown in, and hopefully there will be a good synergy between both sides that will benefit, which would then be good ideas that would benefit the ecosystem as a whole. So that's more on the global side of things for us. Yeah.
And Teck?
Yeah, so we think of, first of all, I think we think of how, I'm just talk about the developer community in particular. We think of how a developer, I'm a developer myself, fairly technical. So if I think about how I want to engage with a platform, I typically come to a platform to learn about how to develop on those platforms, learn about our APIs, SDKs, what you can do on the platform. And then perhaps I would love to interact with the other developers of the platform, right? So, and then eventually I might want to start a project or collaborate with other people to start a project and try to get users or customers. So I think we organize kind of our program around those three themes. So helping developers learn about platforms, so we'll organize documentation and produce tutorials and things like that. Not only on Binance platform, but blockchain in general. We want to expand the pool of blockchain developers in the ecosystem, so more ideas get built and more things get created. And then a portion of that would be, want to engage with other developers in the ecosystem. So we kind of want to build tools, things like forums, newsletters, potentially podcasts, things like that to help them connect with each other. And we're building a website for that and Telegram channels. And then beyond that, those projects or collaborations that developers, groups that they form or projects that they started, if those get traction or we see that they have potential, we'll try to support them with one of those programs within Binance. So we have, like I just mentioned, fellowship, incubation, strategic investment, launchpad, listing, and all those things. And there'll be more and more programs that are specific to each vertical as we progress. So that's how we kind of foster a developer community. So it's easy to think about, right? So you learn about how to engage with the platform and blockchain in general, and then you try to get people to talk to each other to spark new ideas and stuff. And then for those who actually produce, things that are gaining a little bit of traction with customers and users, we will help with funding or other things that help you, double down on your growth and pour fuel and fire kind of thing. So yeah, at least that's how we think about how to grow the developer community from the Binance perspective. So.
Yeah, so Japan is pretty interesting market. There's like a lot of developer enterprises working on this space. There's also like pretty big investor community, but at the same time, it's still very, very domestic, and there's a big language barrier. So in the beginning, I was more focusing on like translating some of the important like article in blockchain in English into Japanese, or like introducing some of the key figures in this space around the world to Japanese market. So for example, like when we organized the first official like Ethereum meetup back in March last year, we've like connected Vitalik and Aya, who is the executive director of Ethereum Foundation, to the major like newspaper or media company in Japan to first help them understand what it's about, and then also to get more like people outside of crypto community get interested in this space. And then I think it started to work, and then more and more like non-crypto people started working on this space. And but I think we still need to that kind of activity for Japan. So like this June, QuantStamp and I and several other friends organized a hackathon, which is targeted for developers, but who hasn't really had any experience in blockchain. And we had like over 100 attendees, and then so the interest from those like a non-crypto community is still pretty high and for crypto. So I feel like we just need to do more and more work for them to easily get into this space. And recently I started getting more focused on telling what's happening in Japanese market to outside of the world. So I've started a weekly newsletter on like what's happening in Japan, like since like April. And yeah, and then I see like more and more people started subscribing it.
Okay, so always tricky to be the last one when all ideas have run out, but maybe I would try to be more country specific so that it's gonna help, it's gonna stand out a bit. So I'm not sure if everyone here is familiar with Southeast Asia. So I'm just gonna share my opinions, and maybe you'll tell me if if those things are real when you come to, because I know that some of you here are planning to visit Southeast Asia very soon. So maybe some of you here have known that, of course, like the community there is heavily influencer based, and also, of course, it also like relies a lot on local connections. I think I'm stating the obvious, but maybe everyone understands this, but everyone does not reflect their understanding in what they are doing. So, for example, with the first thing, when it comes to like influencers, there are so many influencers. We also have scammy influencers. We have true influencers in Southeast Asia. And what's different is that I'm talking more about, like, let's say the grassroots influencer in these countries. So, for example, in Vietnam, we also have all these like people, like when they just spontaneously just explore different projects in another country, which is totally not related to Vietnam. So I've heard a lot of projects, even in Taiwan, even in Korea, which have done nothing with promoting the project in Vietnam, but they have users, they have developers, they have interests, they have enthusiasts from Vietnam, which is definitely, very different from all the other countries. So this means that, of course, we have all these kind of influencers who are trying to really do something, instead of just speculating and investing in the project. So, of course, the implication is that you need to have a good product, or at least please show some sign that you are doing some improvement or constant improvement with your product, because this is very important to show to the community that basically you're going to be there for the long run. So, I mean, of course, again, it might be obvious to everyone else, but if you're thinking about Southeast Asia as a serious market, this is something that you need to put in your agenda. Second of all, with the local connections, again, we've been receiving a lot of interest from, let's say, top-tier projects who are just going to do like a swift roadshow in Southeast Asia, doing roadshow here and there. And you know, in some countries, like when they say that the investors are huge and people are very speculative, again, I hope that this is not the general understanding about Southeast Asia, because at the end of the day, what you give to the community is what you're going to receive back. So a lot of people are thinking that Southeast Asia is just about speculative, it's just about investment, it's about trading. It's correct in some way, but if you're just going to give them the speculative tools, that's all you're going to receive. So basically, some projects are going to do this kind of roadshow. They're going to do a one-up event, and then they're just going to be like coming back to the headquarters and do all these kind of, you know, coding and development, hoping that the community is going to grow organically, you know, in Southeast Asia. But I have to say that that's not going to happen unless you're going to be around and you're going to show them that you're going to be there, you have some presence in Southeast Asia. If you can be more extreme, of course, it's going to be better to have a person who speaks the local language and who will help you to boost the community. But of course, I mean, that's not going to be the ideal scenario for everyone. But at least, as I said, so the market in Southeast Asia is also very country specific. You cannot approach every country in the same way, and maybe just kind of host this event and maybe just involve one or two influencers that you might think are influencers in the country, and thinking that by that way you can grow the community. It's going to require a lot more effort than that. But as I mentioned, at the end of the day, Southeast Asia, I believe people are very innovative. They will explore great products. They will explore anything that's going to help them better, either through investment, either through development, or either through something else with your product. So that's something that we have been able to learn from the community. We are still trying to learn more, because of course the communities keep growing and more international projects are coming in. But I think, yeah, that's my 2 cents about what we have been doing in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, all the things that you guys have mentioned, I couldn't agree more. And it seems like the global service around the community is more emphasizing the like really detailed facilitations, and also like continuously supporting the whole community and like communications and engagement. And the local community seems like the localizations, and including understanding the market and understanding the target group, is like a really important key. Yeah, that's a good learning. And so like, I still like try to figure out, if I go to each of your community, what kind of people I'm gonna meet. And so could you share a little bit of who's active, like stakeholders or players, and who actually make this community and community great as well? Yeah. Anyone want to share? Yeah, Nicole.
So the active stakeholders, as I mentioned before, so we are also trying to recruit more newbies in the ecosystem. We think that that's a bigger pie than, you know, just trying to maybe to sell your products to existing users or existing investors. So we are trying to involve more, like, you know, mainstream industry players, so companies, and, you know, even like regulators, especially in Southeast Asia when the regulation is still kind of getting in shape. So it's also a good opportunity for us to leverage our community to talk with the regulators and discuss about how we can, you know, live in harmony. Because at the end of the day, I think the regulators also need us to be able to understand what is happening in the space. So for Vietnam, that's definitely it. We also have a lot of newbies coming in, either developers from other technologies who are also exploring if blockchain is going to bring them a better job opportunities. And also, of course, like mainstream industry people who are trying to look for other solutions. Also the same in Thailand. So you might have heard that, of course, the SEC in Thailand is also very friendly towards either both international and local projects. So they have been issuing these regulations around, trading, what cryptocurrencies are legal to trade in the country. They have issued licenses for ICO portals, which is like ICO agents for the government to do due diligence with all these ICOs. They are also looking into different services like custody services, maybe like some other security tokens offerings, et cetera, and they are happy to talk with different players about this. So we also discuss with them, in touch with them regularly, just to see how we can advise them on the regulation and also to grow the community. And also at the same time, I can see that for Thailand, Vietnam, I think that there's some similar interest among these, among the mainstream institutions and mainstream industry players. For other countries like the Philippines, for example, we are more or less in touch. I think we are more, the most active community is also like, I think of course they have traders, that they have developers, because Philippines and Vietnam, of course you might know, have the largest like developer pool in all over Southeast Asia. So here, Philippines has been chosen as, a development hub for a lot of projects. For Indonesia, it's a bit tricky because I think the market is moving very slow. Even with the biggest exchange there, I heard that of course they have lower than 10 million users, although they have around like 300 million population or something. But then actually like the country itself, the regulation and the red tape is somehow, are some kind of impediments to the growth in the country. So what we are looking at Indonesia is going to be a bit more long term. So again, it's still, we need to maybe educate them the basics about how to install a wallet, how to do all these like basic trading, because basically they still haven't even started to speculate with blockchain, with cryptocurrency, which is very interesting in a way. For Malaysia, I believe that maybe TM is going to be able to provide you a better insight into this market, because he, together with CoinGecko and other players, we have been also trying to grow the market in Malaysia. But yes, regulation again is also like another hurdle in there. Although Malaysia obviously also has a lot of like developers, and basically I guess that when we look at Malaysia, we're also looking at the development talents that they are having in there. So just a quick recap of what we have been able to interact with in Southeast Asia.
I have a question. So I see like crypto community and also traditional startup community has kind of like a relevance. So because like where most of the developers are tend to have the strong like crypto tech, blockchain tech community. So when I was at one of the most active VC fund for Southeast Asia, and I used to live in Thailand. I used to live in Philippines as well, and in traditional startup space like Indonesia and also like Singapore, or maybe Malaysia and Thailand are like the biggest market for startups when it comes to like VC funding or like actual like market cap or something. But where do you see like is there like any difference in crypto community? Like if you look at the crypto market in Southeast Asia, which country do you want to start a business from?
That's
move to Q&A.
I'll have to walk on thin ice and try not to maybe offend other countries when I share my options. I think you're correct in a point, because basically you have picked out the most populous markets in Southeast Asia, right? So if you have a product and if you want to launch it to the market, obviously you would look at these markets where they have like tens of millions of people and young population who are more technical savvy and who want to adopt your products. I think at the moment, honestly, if it comes to adoption, I think that Thailand has a better chance of being, leading the movement, because basically everything is still kind of ramping up in there, and then the regulation is just getting getting in shape, and then of course you can see all these like international projects coming in, and the interest from the local community is growing. I think that Thailand at the moment is having quite a healthy kind of growth and potential in a way. And with more like mainstream companies like CP Group, which is the largest, like the conglomerate of Thailand, and also Omise joining the space with OmiseGo, of course. With all these big players, we think that both with the force, with the top-down and the bottom-up adoption, there will be a lot of changes in Thailand. When it comes to investment, obviously Vietnam might be one of the places, because constantly it has been ranked among the top 10 markets in any, among the top 3 like global exchanges. Obviously, Malaysia is not too bad, I hope. Thailand as well in terms of investment. Also in terms of development, I think you have picked out like, Philippines and Vietnam and Thailand. Singapore is a very interesting market in a way that I haven't even mentioned it among all these Southeast Asia, because I don't think that it's part of Southeast Asia. It's very unique in a way that it's so international that you cannot really label it as Asia or Southeast Asia. I mean, because all these labels seem to be a bit mismatched. Singapore, the market itself is very small, and the country itself is definitely not the best place when it comes to adoption, because they have maybe 7 billion people. But the country itself has been open up enough so that all major projects have set up the team there. I would say that Singapore might be the incorporation hub of blockchain projects, and also the connecting hub, because all the best, like all the leading VCs, all the leading connectors, all the leading communities or projects must have presence in Singapore, because that's the connecting hub with Southeast Asia and with other developed markets like Europe or the US. So in a way, I would say that if I have a project, of course I would try to maybe split it into different parts so that I can pick the country with the best value. So in a way, maybe choosing Singapore as a place to incorporate, or Thailand, maybe choose to set up or raise fund from some other markets like Thailand or Vietnam or Malaysia, and maybe have my development team in the Philippines or Vietnam, for example. But each country also has their own thing, and you can find a lot of ways to decentralize your team.
Thank you. It's a long answer for like
Very
short
short
questions.
answer.
No worries. Teck, could you share a little bit of your community who's active?
Yeah. So Binance is a very mission-driven company, and in the same way, we like to attract mission-driven developers who actually come into this space because they believe in the core values or core properties of blockchain technology. And we have actually attracted quite a few of those into our fellowship programs, also of other programs as well. They're long-term thinkers and long-term believers in the space, regardless of price or market, bear, bull, whatever it is. They're all about bring about the potential of blockchain to the masses, right? So I think we haven't seen that yet. I think we're all, as an industry, is trying to achieve that. And we'd like to see more developers. We'd like to support more developers to kind of, come up with more ideas and come up with more services, products, and bring about impact and change through blockchain technologies across the world. So I think that's, through our different products as well as the ecosystem at large. I think that's what Binance is about. Our motto is freedom of money, and then we like to bring about freedom through blockchain technology. And I think in general, that's the kind of community, regardless of developers or people engaged with the exchange, these are the type of people we attract, very mission-driven folks. Yeah.
TM, like who's the active stakeholders or players in your community?
Yeah, I think the community that we want to create is mainly a community globally for anyone who lives on crypto, on blockchain, to come in and feel at home. So if you just come into a community, you got people like sharing about things that are happening in their city, things that they're eating. So it's not entirely related to crypto per se. But of course, due to the nature of the product that we built, we tend to attract a wide spectrum of people. So there are like hardcore speculators, there are people who are really interested in the tech. So I think for us, we're trying to make it as welcoming as possible for anyone who comes into the industry to feel at home and have someone to talk to and share common ideas, because you don't get this very often in your local area, that people who share similar views of cryptocurrency. Some may think that it's a very different thing than what you normally do. So that's the kind of setting that we're trying to create in a global setting. Yeah.
Obi, you?
I think I briefly mentioned about the stakeholders in Japan in the beginning. So I think developers, community is becoming pretty active, growing still, and a lot of enterprises, not only tech giants, but also traditional companies. There's a new exchange called Decurrent, which is kind of like a consortium exchange invested by the biggest traditional companies, like a life insurance company, transportation company, banks, real estate companies. Those guys invested in that exchange for like around 50 million, I remember, if it's correct. So that's happening as well. And when it comes to like a information platform, most of the people, especially like the developers or smaller investors, like retail investors, are very active on Twitter in Japan. So if you want to reach out to a Japanese community, I think Twitter is a very important channel.
Thank you. It kind of shows there like all the different landscape of each community and also each different country, including like Southeast Asia. And now I want to kind of ask, or including my own insight being in the industry, I think blockchain industry is very special. It's almost like there's no other industry empathizing the community this much. Yeah, and I myself got a lot of support from community when I first started my journey in the blockchain, Korean community, also Berlin community, and now in Korean community. And it obtains a lot of people's life who work in the blockchain industry is blending their life with the work and the community. So community is like a really big factor. It's definitely different than other industry. When we talk about community, it's more like a family, and then I see my blockchain friends and family more than my actual family and friends. So I think you guys all agree. And now we don't have much time, so I will give you two questions in one question. So how can we collaborate together as a big, giant community and a family, and to bring this blockchain industry even more efficient and better and then bigger and sustainable? And the second is, it could be very personal. The answer can be personal as well. And why community matter for you, and what's community for you? Yeah, so those like a personal touch for the end. Teck, want to start?
Yeah. So I think we talk about communities and the differences in geographic regions and stuff like that. I think we should focus more on the commonalities between us. I think we all came into blockchain. We all got fascinated by Bitcoin or whatever token or network out there, pretty much for the same reason, because of the promise of the technology to change, to make it more efficient, more trustless, more fair, more open, and all those things. I think we focus on those, and I travel quite a bit to different communities in Europe, Asia, US, all that. I sense that most people come to this space for the same reasons. Of course, there's a speculative aspect to it as well during a certain era in 2017, but then I think the people who stick around and people who actually actively engage with the community are the ones that find a commonality. I think so. Communities form together because of shared beliefs and shared interests. I think if we focus on those and connect people based on the basics, right? The simple core values that we all want to bring about in the world, I think we have a lot in common. Even it is my first time in Korea, to be honest, and when I talk to developers, like I immediately have this connection without, even though I haven't actually engaged with any like Korean developer community, but you feel very close to them because we all came into the space for the same reasons, regardless of when we come to the space. So I think if we focus on that and then encourage collaboration and cooperation, and even through this panel, I've had conversation with these with TM, for example, to kind of see how we can foster a community in Malaysia in particular, and then yeah, I think more collaboration, more communications, and focus on the commonalities versus the differences would be one way. Yeah.
And why community matter for you?
I think to bring about impact and change that big, because it impacts so many things. I mean, financial systems is just one of them, and then many different centralized systems that can be made more fair, more transparent, more open. You need a lot of people to bring about that change. You can't be just a Facebook or Google and do this. You have to do it together, and it's a global effort. So I think I think one of the presenters, I think it was Nguyen that said that it's going to take decades. So it's a long-term game. It's not a 5-year game. We need to have a very long-term horizon to this, and people can only. I think there was a saying that to what is it? I forgot the saying, but it'll come back to me. But in order to play a long-term game, I think you need a strong community to encourage each other getting over humps, getting over obstacles, getting over all the things we've seen that obstruct change and innovation, regardless of blockchain or whatever. We just need that community. So,
thank you.
I kind of look at the blockchain and cryptocurrency industry as a relatively young one. I think Bitcoin is about 10 to 11 years old. And just by being in this conference alone, you get to hear a lot of ideas, new ideas and proposals on what can be done. So that being said, what it means is that there's a lot of problems that are still unsolved. There's a lot of structure that is not in place and a lot of uncertainty down the road. And even for us at CoinGecko, we are always wanting to build services and tools that will power the open financial system of the future. And I don't think we can do it just by ourselves. We always need to engage with different community and even build our own community as well in order to get ideas and understand what people want. And over time, we start to solve all these problems bit by bit. And I would say 10 years forward, the world will definitely look very, very different. And whatever that we try to apply, that we understand the traditional market, for example, and apply it into crypto, it may not necessarily work, which is why we need all this constant bouncing of ideas between people that have common interests in order to move forward in the space. And that's why I think community is really, really important in this industry. Yeah.
Just want to add something?
Okay, I'm done. Just going to be very short. So just want to echo his point. I think we should respect the diversity that we are having in here, and sometimes maybe controversy as well, because I think that that's sometimes people just treat these controversy and conflict in blockchain differently. But in my point of view, once we have all those all those discussions are going to help us moving forward. So I think either as a community builder or as a project or as any stakeholder, it's important that you just accept that this space is diverse, and you can have other people not on the same page with you, but at the end of the day, I mean, everyone's going to help each other to move forward, because basically, I mean, the industry is young, the market is still very small, so everyone still has a share in this market. And I think also it's important that we also look on the newbie side, how to expand this market instead of just focusing on the existing users. There's a huge market out there which are totally untapped, that through education or through all these community engagement, that you can get more potential users and more potential stakeholders for your project. Personally, why community matters to me, because I feel that in this space, I can never be inferior, because I can speak to a financial veteran with 17 years of experiences, and maybe a 20-year-old developer, maybe on more or less on the same ground. This is not going to happen in any existing I don't know, any mainstream businesses, where you have to speak with people with millions of years of experiences, and they think that they know everything. And the industry has been so well structured that there's little way for you to come up with an innovation. But what has been driving me, what has been motivating me since day one is that with this industry, no one's considered like too experienced. Everyone is still learning, and everyone can come up with something crazy that you don't know whether it's going to work or not. So I guess that everyone more or less can have the same kind of starting point. And it's also good to learn from people from so many industries. So you can meet an energy specialist, you can meet a finance and banking person from all over the world, and no way that you can meet them in real life without this blockchain space. So I think that has been like really my motivation to be in here.
Thank you.
Yeah, as Nicole said, I think even if you say community, it's a very, very small now, and compared to like traditional startup space or traditional other industry, and it's still like most of the people in the world they don't care about crypto. So I think it's important to bring more like new people to learn about, get interested in this space. And I think blockchain is not only development of technology, but it's also like kind of like social. How do you say that? It's also like changing the mindset of people, or changing the thinking framework, or to looking like economics. So I think the community for me is like a supporting environment to think about the future, to collaborate together with like people all in the world.
Yeah, thank you. That was our last questions and then answers. Yeah, community is starting from one person, like each one of you here. And so community builders are putting a lots of effort to make this industry better and working more collaborative way and the more healthy way. And just wish us good luck for ourselves. And then I would like to take a question, but I don't think we have time. But next is the break time. So please come and talk to the panels if you have any questions. And thank you for joining the session again. Thank you.